everybody, welcome. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for joining me today. Now, I happen to have been gifted, let me move those off to the side, this box of pressed leaves. So these are real leaves, predominantly maple leaves. Some of them are big. Most of them, I just need small ones, so I kind of pulled off to the side some of the smaller ones. Down in the bottom, there's some little tiny pansies and things. So I'm going to save those for other crafts. These are unbelievably fragile. They're nice and flat, but they're very crisp and they're very delicate. And for the most part, because these are pretty old, I think these were pressed a long time ago. So a lot of the color is kind of leached out of them and they're sort of this tone. I want them to be a little bit more this kind of tone. I mean, you know, the two work together really well, but we're going to start off by kind of coloring them. This was my experiment. Does it work? And they look great. So what I've got is, I just have a little piece of paper to do this over. I have alcohol, so 99% isopropyl alcohol, and these ones were colored with orange and purple. So because ultimately I want to use them all in the same project, I want them all to be similarly toned. And all that I'm going to do, let's take a slightly bigger one, is I'm going to spritz the top side of my leaf with the alcohol, and I'm going to drop a little bit of the alcohol inks on. And I'm just going to take a fan brush and laying it down, I'm just going to brush that over the surface, and I'm going to put it off to the side to dry. And it's just in the, you know, with the intent of getting a little bit more color on them. They dull down, so they don't stay super bright, so they do look a little bit more natural. I mean, you can see this one I just did, and then this one, which is dried now. So it does dull down and ends up looking a little bit more like the maple leaves at their height, right? At their height of kind of the color perfection of it all. And you know, there's no real magic to this. I'm just kind of brushing it, and that way each of them gets a little bit of a unique finish, a little bit more orange, a little more purple on the tip. And so I'm just going to carry on and get some of these done. Ultimately, I need 8. I'm doing a few more than that, just, you know, the possibility of breakage. But I'm going to get these done and set off to the side to dry, and we'll come back once they're dry so that we can move on to the next part. I have a mold, a coaster mold, and what I want to do is I want to use resin. Now what I do have is a 2-part epoxy resin. These cups, which are from the dollar store, are awesome because they have little measuring lines on the side. So I've done equal parts of each. I'm going to add the part A and part B in here. So use whatever brand you're comfortable with, whatever brand you can get wherever you are. I don't have a particular favorite. I couldn't get this one anymore, which was just like one of the first that I ever bought. And I just restocked. I'm just using the last of this though, and I just bought a different brand. I'm going to give it a try. So I'm assuming for the most part, they're all fairly equal. But you want to stir this. This is not a fast dry. This is a slow dry. So we're going to be leaving this part of it overnight. But we want to mix it until you don't see, you kind of saw that one part was a little bit more yellow. I'm just looking for a little stylus. One part was a little bit more yellow, one part was a little bit clear. It does go perfectly clear, but you want to stir until you don't see, like I can still see little threads of color in there. So you want to stir until it's nice and smooth and uniform in color. All right. What I want to do is I want to put a bit of my resin into the bottom of each of these just to have something that my leaves can kind of stick down into, that they can kind of embed into, so that as I put them in, I'm not going to end up with, you know, resin that didn't go down or didn't coat to it, because this is going to ultimately be the top of my coasters. I'm going to be laying my leaves down, good side down in this. So put that off to the side. We've got lots of dry time. These are the little leaves that we did. Now, they have stems on them that were great. Do the stem. I'm just going to cut that off. It was great when I was holding them for painting with the alcohol ink, but it's just going to get in the way. So we're going to remove that. And what I want is, I've got 2 leaves per coaster. So what I thought that I could maybe try and do is pop one down, and I have a little tiny stylus to help push it down, make sure that it's down, embedded into my resin. And then I'll take a little bit of resin just over top of that leaf. So that the second leaf has something to stick to. Perfect. So that's what I'm going to do for each of my coasters. And then I will be able to take that last little bit of resin that I have, and I am just going to top them up slightly. We're going to add more resin onto them, but I want to have a bit of a colored backing to them. So we're just going to do this part in the clear, let it firm up overnight, and then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll add our backing and then let that dry overnight. So it's kind of like a 2-part project, just to make sure that we get a little bit of depth happening here. You could just put one in, and bear in mind, like, you could use any kind of floral for this. You could use, how big are you? You're kind of big. Okay, but I like this guy. I love the colors on these. That turned out awesome. Okay, there we go. And now that those leaves go off to the side, I'm just going to add a little bit more of a resin, pour over the top. And let that kind of even out. And I just want to have all of the leaf part fully encased at this stage. So I'm just going to gently push them down in. Okay, just like this. And then I'm going to leave them to dry. All right, these have nicely hardened overnight. And, you know, like this one popped up just a little. This one's pretty good. This one's perfect. This one's got a little spot. But we're going to be putting more resin in there, so it's not an issue. And when you're submerging things like this, especially if you're going to walk away and leave them, it's not a bad idea to plan on like a double pour. So I have more resin mixed up here. One of the things that I didn't show yesterday was after I shut off the video, I did take out my little heat gun and I gave them a little bit of blast of heat just so that any of the bubbles rose to the surface. If there's bubbles in front of the leaves, that's not going to do it. They're just going to still be there. But I've got a couple of alcohol inks. I'm thinking brass, which is a nice gold color, eggplant, and possibly a green that I'll swirl on the back of these so that when we flip them over and we release the leaves, you've got those kind of nice orange red, kind of purpley kind of tones on a bit of a background. You could just do this clear. You don't have to do the color, but I'm just in the why the heck not category. So I'm going to just add a bit. If I've mixed up more resin than I needed, you know me, I will just pour them into a mold and add it to my pre-molded stash ready for future projects. I don't need these to be super thick, but I do want it to be enough to kind of carry the depth that I need to kind of cover over each of those. And I just want it to go out to the edges. Okay, so I have a little tiny bit left, and I don't think that I really need it for this. So I'm just adding one more little dab, and then I'm going to put this off to the side and I'll pour it into a mold afterward. Yesterday I did the same thing and I got a couple of little bees. So I'm going to start, oh, if I can get it open. By adding a little bit of brass. Now here's where I strategically get to place some of my colors where there's the open spaces, because this is automatically going to be seen from the front. Remember, we're working backward here. What we're looking at is the bottom of our coasters. You can see how this just spreads out beautifully. All right, so let's drop a little bit of purple because I'm thinking that would maybe work, but I don't want tons. And you can see it's pretty strong. And we'll maybe do just a little tiny bit. So that was eggplant, and now we're taking lettuce. And we're just going to add a little bit of lettuce in there. So probably the same, 3 little drops of that. Whoops. Or more if you're dripping. And I'm just going to take a little stick and just kind of lightly give this a bit of a swirl. That way then the colors will go out to the edges and it'll be a little bit a little bit patterned rather than just a solid backing color. And then we're just going to leave these to sit overnight again. And then I'll be back tomorrow to unmold them with you. I have my fingers crossed. I'm hoping these look really cool. Our coasters have had overnight to sit and dry. Now, it looks to me like a lot of the inks went into the center and not so much stayed out around the edges, which is where I would have preferred it to be. I had a couple of times gone back and kind of, you know, re-blended them with my stick to pull it back out. But after I left for the night, they kind of all went to the center again. In which case, without seeing what it looks like on the other side, I am thinking that next time what I would try and do is mix the inks into the resin so that it would maybe stay. But that said, maybe it looks fabulous on the other side. Oh, there is a background. Okay, so you can see that, let me see about a piece of white paper. Okay, let's look at them this way. So there is a bit of a background to them that you can see. The color on the leaves stayed really vibrant. They looked great. And so like here you can see we got some of that swirling behind, and that looks awesome. So those pressed leaves actually perked right up. They look awesome. You can tell that they're real leaves in there, which is great. The color that we put onto them with the alcohol inks is very vibrant, looks really good. We've got a little bit of that swirling happening, which is actually kind of nice that it's not totally solid. You've got kind of this explosion of the purples and the gold kind of went into these browns, or you've got some of the bleeding out. So I'm really happy with these. This was kind of a cool experiment. I think that worked extremely well with those leaves. Definitely managed them well with the delicate aspect of them because it encased them. We've got two with air bubbles on the front of the leaves, which is me perhaps not pushing down in that area, but I don't even mind that actually. Yeah, I like the layering of them. You could embed one leaf in, cover it with resin, a thin coat of resin, let it dry, put the next leaf down in to more resin and coat it, and then do, so you could have added an extra step so that you have more of a resin layer in between. We do have a bit of layering and a little bit of depth happening because I did spoon some extra resin on top of the first leaf, so it wasn't just an air bubble trapped in between. So we've got a little bit of that. We could exaggerate that by adding an extra day of layering in there, but overall, pretty darn cool. You could do exactly the same thing with some faux leaves or with some other foliage, you know, press them between some books, let them dry, and you're good to go. There is a method where you could do it in the microwave, weighted down. You'd probably have to Google that to be able to see. I haven't tried it myself, so I don't want to advise you on that, but there is a method to kind of speed it along in the microwave if you choose to do that. You just definitely need to have them pressed to be able to get them to be flat. Somebody went to the trouble and did it for me already. I'm eager to try this with some of the little pansies and florals, but they look a little bit old too. I think that these have been pressed for a lot of years, and we're in somebody's stash, and they're looking pretty leached out, but I love the idea of the alcohol ink recoloring them and bringing them to the vibrant life. And then now the resin is just going to keep that forever. So I'm digging the maple leaves, guys. Maybe it's just a Canada thing. I don't know. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know if you're going to give it a try. Let me know if you press your own flowers and you have some advice for others, because I started with them already pre-done for me. But bear in mind, you could do the same thing, encasing whatever you'd like and creating some depth. I'm just going with fall because all the leaves are starting to fall out there. So if you've got an abundance of them, just an idea of what you could do with them. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you as always. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. And until then, take care.